Hi, this is Lauren from the editing room. Just to give a quick note that unfortunately we did have some technical difficulties with sound this week. So while unfortunately Joe was meant to be on the podcast, we weren't able to get it to work. So apologies if it seems a bit wonky, if Jules and I are referencing things that Joe said, but he's not there. Joe, you're not on the podcast, forever in our hearts, but yet you'll still get to hear Jules and I wax lyrical about all sorts of games. So we hope you enjoy this pod nevertheless. Thanks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Board Game Barbecue podcast. You have Jules as your host here today. It's episode 326, brought to you by Advent Games, More Than Meeples, and our lovely Patreons. And with me, I have two wonderful friends. I'll start with the local Lauren. How you doing, Lauren?
Yeah, really good, mate. A happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year.
First part of the new year. It feels like it's been such a long break, though.
It has been, but it's been lovely, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of the shenanigans we've all gotten up to in that time. Well, I got to go and see some family in Melbourne over the Christmas and New Year period, which was lovely and really good break, just seeing family I haven't seen for a little while and getting to play some games, which was fantastic. I didn't play as much as I thought I would, but I only brought some small card games, quick, easy to learn things for family. And it was a great time. Sausage Sizzle was probably one of the big hits with family. So much fun, easy to pick up. I'm sure many of our listeners have played that one before and heard the chants over and over again of sausage. That's it. But yeah, Sausage Sizzle, I played many, many times. It's just so much fun. That game is just the antithesis, I think that's the correct word, of peer pressure. And I love it. Just pushing people over the edge to go for broke, and most of the time not paying off. But there was one game I played of it and I was doing terribly. And I thought, look, if there's any chance of me not coming last, I've got to go for sausages. And I pulled off the max score of 28 and I was so happy. And then both other players scored 21 on their subsequent turns. And I'm like, come on. But yeah, Sausage Sizzle, massive hit over the holiday period for me. What about you, Lauren?
Well, I've played a lot of games, but something non-game related that I wanted to talk about beforehand was I got to see the Lord of the Rings musical stage production.
Okay, I'm curious about this because I was like, really? Really? Does that work?
So look, I mean, I'm not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. I am married to a huge nerd, and so he's a massive fan of it. We went with a bunch of friends who were also super into Lord of the Rings, and I was not expecting to love it, but I was really pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
It was actually quite funny. It was a bit bizarre. So they were all, instead of having the musicians under the stage and kind of things going on up above, all of the actors were playing instruments, which really undercuts the seriousness of some scenes. If it's like meeting the fellowship and then Elrond, I kid you not, comes out with a trombone playing in the middle of the scene. But it was really good. The female singers in particular, Arwen and Galadriel, were just flippin' awesome. And Gollum had a musical number which was just chef's kiss. It was so
amazing.
Funny. Sung in the Gollum voice too, and he's kind of
no way
running around. The actor was awesome that did it. I mean, it's not as high production as
Sure.
Wicked or Hamilton or anything like that, but it was really I was really charmed by it. It was really good.
I mean, you said like not super high production. I was just picturing like Gandalf in a trench coat.
That being said, though, and maybe this is mildly spoilery if someone's going to go see it, but what they did with Shelob, the spider, was awesome.
Okay.
So there's these eyes pop up in the back of the stage through this opening, and you think, oh, that's going to be it. And then this insanely massive kind of puppeteering thing of these huge spider legs kind of crawl out onto the stage. It was really cool.
Nice.
yeah, there was a lot of legginess on stage, which I was not hot on in the way of spiders, but it was, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I would recommend seeing it if you're in the mood for a musical, you like Lord of the Rings. It's a pleasant enough night. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I've seen ads for that. I was like, oh, I don't know if that is my jam, but hey, that sounds cool.
Yeah, my mate's in one of those ads now because James, being an absolute, stir the pot kind of person, they were walking around doing the interviews and he just pushed my friend into it. And so my friend is now in all the promotional material for this musical. But yeah, no, it was really, really fun.
Very cool.
On the game front, I got to play Cities, which is a recent release from Phil Walker Harding and Steve Finn, who's the guy that made Herbaceous, Biblios, the Whatnot Cabinet, stuff like that, published by Devere. It's in the similar vein of Phil's games like Cloud City, Neoville, where you're making a small, 3x3, 4x4 grid of cities and putting out buildings that have kind of a nice, lovely verticality to, score some points. I really like Cities. I really liked it a lot.
Okay, that's good to hear because I brought that back from Gen Con and I still haven't played it.
It was really sweet. It's
okay.
got really gentle worker placement, but it's this in that it's not very complex. But it's definitely got that, can I wait one more turn to take this before my opponent takes it?
Yeah.
And because everything gets taken every round, whether that be tiles, whether that be buildings, whether that be scoring cards, there's also the, okay, I want to take this from my opponent or I want to leave this. But if I take this from them, then they're definitely going to leave me with that. And I don't want that. Which I found really interesting, which I liked quite a lot. Super quick to set up and teach and play. The only con that I would say is I wish the scoring cards were a little more ambitious.
Okay, yeah.
It's a lot of kind of, who has 3 red buildings of 3 height and 1 of each height. I just wish they were a little more dynamic, but there still is enough going on there. You've got buildings, you've got the tiles, you've got these little features that you're trying to score and objectives you're racing for. So it does feel quite tight and really pleasant. It's going to be super easy to table. And I think will serve as a really nice introduction for a lot of mechanisms for people who are getting into games and also just a lovely filler for gamers. Yeah, really enjoyed Cities.
Very cool. Yeah, it's been one on my list that I've been trying to find the time to play. But yeah, it did look cool. There were a lot of people lining up to pick that up at Gen Con. It was very, very popular when I was there. A couple other games I got to play during the holiday period. One I played for the first time was Cascadero, which was one of the newer Reiner Knizia titles. And I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was really clean, easy to pick up. It didn't knock my socks off, but it was good. I had a good time with it, but I can see it would suffer at a lower player count. It needs to be one that's high player count to sort of really get in each other's way. So it was me, Dan, and Connor that played it. We went round to Dan's house, and yeah, Dan taught it, and it was really good. I quite enjoyed it. Would play it again, but not one to write home about. But yeah, really solid.
Yeah, I backed the Kickstarter for this one and got Cascadito as well. And I ended up selling them both on because I actually think Joe Rebirth is better than Cascadero.
Yeah.
It's in the family of Blue Lagoon, Babylonia, all those kinds of, Tale games that Knizia does. I think Rebirth is better. There's, lots of iterations on it that just tweak ever so slightly.
Yeah.
I just feel like the tracks were never tense enough. The board was never tense enough.
Yeah. I didn't feel ever like the board was super tense, but I had one moment in the game where everything kind of exploded, where I was hitting a certain bonus on the track, and then that pushed that cube, and then that cube, and that cube, and it kind of went absolutely nuts. Everything just sort of lined up perfectly. So there was one really big, satisfying turn. I was like, oh, that was really good. But then the rest of it was kind of like, oh, well, I just need to try and connect to this city color so I can get up the track. I do like games, and this is one of them where you have to meet a certain condition to be eligible to win the game. I like games that have that, but there wasn't a lot of tension in blocking people so much to stop them from getting there. It felt like you always had options. So yeah, there was probably a little bit lacking there, but overall enjoyed the game.
Yeah. There's another one called Bebop. Is that what it's called? It's not a Knizia game, but it's a similar kind of system of placing kind of tiles on the board. The theme is that you're bands touring around and getting to concerts and things like that. But
that may come up later.
The Space Biff guy is a big fan of it.
Okay, cool.
He sang huge praises of it. So I've been very interested to try that one in the context of having enjoyed some of Knizia's tile games.
Okay, very cool. And the other one I'll just mention is, I don't know if this is an annual tradition, but it's certainly a thing I've done multiple times, is playing Black Rose Wars on New Year's Eve. We've got loads of time, we're staying up late, why not crack out a big game, right? So I got to play that with some family and friends, and it's just a good time. I really enjoyed it. Black Rose Wars is just wild fun. I just love that game. I don't get to play it enough. I have so much content for it. It's not going to go anywhere, but I really love that game. It's just lots and lots and lots of fun. And playing the Rebirth version, which is the sort of slightly tweaked, second edition, if you will, I got to play a class character that I hadn't experienced in the other content, which was really, really fun. So I was summoning like lots of monsters, and their thing was all about using the monsters off turn. So the Rebirth version has completely new schools of magic. There'll be, I'm sure, in some of the the stretch goal content, there might be some little bits of crossover, but the core game characters felt distinctly different from the core game in the original. The original felt very, probably simple. You've got like a destruction mage, which is just casting fireball everywhere, just doing lots of damage. But the Rebirth ones were just a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more tricky, and you had to line things up to really get the maximum out of each of those characters and those schools of magic. So yeah, I love playing that game each time and just picking a new school and just seeing what it does and having a fun time with it. So yeah, Black Rose Wars Rebirth was heaps of fun on New Year's Eve.
So one game that I did get to play that I was very excited to try was Witness. Yeah, so for those who don't know, it's essentially a crime-solving kind of deduction game that plays out like a game of broken telephone. So everyone has what's specifically only for 4 players, and you are working cooperatively, each with a different piece of information. And each round, the game will tell you to whisper that information to one person, and then you'll kind of be passing around your bits of the puzzle across a few rounds to make sure that everyone's got all the pieces of information. And then at the end, you're trying to just work out the puzzle and answer a few questions to score points collectively. It was really interesting. The memory component is quite strong. It's originally been released as kind of 50 cases in one box, and it's been re-released by Pegasus Spiel with the same designer, Dominique Bowden, but as kind of miniature mini campaigns of 8 cases across a few boxes. I guess it's better to play with the same group because the story does feed in, but it doesn't feel really essential. You could for sure play them as standalone. It's just that the difficulty ramps up as you go. And when I say difficulty, I do mostly mean the memory component of it, because the deduction part of it is there. You do have to apply some logical reasoning. It's not just if you have all of the pieces of information, you've solved it. It's not really the case. It was really cool and was very cute. And going and whispering secretly into someone's ear is funny. It's just the whole process of it is quite funny, and it does simulate kind of unreliable witness as well. The one thing I didn't love about it as much is I think that in deduction games, what is so great is when you have lots of different people with different styles of thinking, and then they come together, and through that combination of different approaches, you all kind of come to the conclusion together.
Mm-hmm.
But this game doesn't have that, because you all have to independently answer the questions at the end, and your score is based on how well everyone does individually but together.
Oh, okay.
And so there's not the, Jules approaches, he says, it could be this, and then I build off your idea, and then together we've worked out the puzzle like you get in other solving kind of games. In this, it was, one person didn't get it, which is, makes them feel not so great because everyone's
Yeah.
always let down. Not that you have to play it for the score, but it's just they didn't think that way, but
Mhm.
everyone else did, or maybe only one person was able to piece together that kind of problem.
Mhm.
So that was the only thing that was a little mark on it for me, but I think that's because I enjoy the collaborative process of building off others' ideas and watching other people think in a way that I wouldn't have. But it's a really cute product. I'm excited to play through all 8 cases. I've only played 2 or 3, but yeah, I'm excited to get the rest. It's pretty cheap. It comes in a small box, so it's definitely worth a crack. And you're not losing out on a huge investment. But that was Witness. I did enjoy that one, and I'm keen to get through the rest of the cases. Another game that I did get to play on Board Game Arena, actually a 2025 release, is Zenith. It's a 2-player lane battler published by Playpunk, with the people who publish Captain Flip. And it's basically a lane battler with just more crunch and more meat to it. Have you heard of this one, Jules?
I have not heard of this. I'm curious because there's been a few lane battlers that have been popping up.
Yeah, I think you were mentioning before that there was a few coming out that kind of was it the Undaunted series, or there was follow-up of that kind
Yeah.
of what universe?
So Line of Fire Burnt Moon is the designers of Undaunted, and it's supposed to play with some of the deck building mechanics potentially, but it's a lane battler that's coming out this year. And then Compile was a big hit at the end of last year. And what's the other lane battler?
Airland and
Airland
Sea,
and Sea, Radlands.
huge
There's
ones, yeah.
there's a few big hit lane battlers that are coming up, so a genre to
100%.
keep my eye on.
And there's a lot of variety in this genre, I feel like, that is emerging more and more. So Zenith was cool because I'd not really seen a lane battler that had Euro mechanisms and kind
Mm-hmm.
of conceits built in. So there's a little tech tree, there's multi-use cards, there's a bit of engine building, so you're vying for control of different planets, but the more cards you play to one planet, the cheaper subsequent cards on that planet become.
Mm-hmm.
It does let you have these really cool kind of bombastic turns where I've made these cards so cheap that it lets me play another one, which gets me up on this track, which now lets me play 3 cards, which triggers this. So you can kind of ramp up an engine and get a really quick point or victory.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting. It does feel like the screws need to be tightened just ever so slightly.
Okay.
It feels like, what we were saying before about the Knizia tile layers, something he iterates upon again and again. This does feel like, I really liked it, but it does feel like the kind of game that it, with 1 or 2 more iterations, would be outstanding.
Okay.
At the moment, I just feel like some of it felt a little random. Some things felt kind of like outside of my control, but yeah, really interesting ideas. It's on Board Game Arena, so it's absolutely worth a shot. And yeah, that was Zenith. It's lane battler that I found really interesting and really want to try. And maybe that is kind of the flavor of the month, is more lane battlers, which we're going to see. Who knows?
Yeah. All right, we've had a couple of technical difficulties for those that have been listening. Joe's had to jump out due to internet problems, but do not worry. Lauren and I will press on, and we've got some cracking games to talk about, of which I will jump in at this point and talk about my sizzle for today, which is Castle Combo. So this is a new one that's been put out by Pandasaurus Games, and it's been getting a lot of buzz, which is pretty cool. I was lucky to get a review copy from them. And Castle Combo is a resource management tableau building game. There's not much else to it. You're going to be building a grid of cards, which is 3x3, and all the cards on them have a cost. They have an instant benefit or a discount, and then an end game scoring system or objective for those cards. And on your turn, you must take a card. If you can't afford anything, there's the I have to do the bad, terrible move that gives me more money so I can do thing next turn, which is the back of every single card gives you some coins, and then hopefully you'll be able to afford something on the next turn. But it's a very simple game. It's you have to take a card, and you're going to essentially collect 9 cards and the game is over. It's a very, very snappy, easy to pick up and learn game. The fun wrinkles in the game is that the game has 2 decks of cards, which are different colors. Functionally, they don't really have any major difference, but one of the mechanics is there's a messenger pawn, and that moves between the 2 decks of cards, and there's market rows for each of them. And you can only purchase cards from the one that the messenger is at. And you have keys which you can use to move the messenger from row to row or to wipe rows and get new card options laid out. What's fun, though, is that those keys are victory points as well as the card victory points. But there are certain strategies or combinations of cards which can get you lots of keys. So you're spending your victory points to maybe go for something you really want. But essentially, you're just trying to make the abilities on the cards work together. So you might have something like this card you pick costs 3 coins, and you put it into your grid, and it will score you 3 points for every yellow card that's in a row, that the row that it's in, or the column that it's in. And you might have cards that give you 4 victory points per red shield that you have in your whole tableau. So the cards have little red shields. Some of them have double shields. There's 6 different shield types that you can collect. And the other one, types of cards you'll see is there's ones that have coin purses, which will allow you to store coins on the cards, and you get victory points per number of coins that are stored on the card. But there's lots of different ways which cards score points, and like the game name suggests, you're trying to combo things together to get lots of points. But you only get 9 cards, and you've got to be really careful with your resources, because you can spend your money very quickly and then you're really stuck. So you're trying to find the right cards to buy, the ones that will give you some money back, or buying ones that give you discounts on the types of cards you're going for. But it's a really, really simple game. I've played it, I think, 4 or 5 times now at this point, and it just is a quick, snappy, nice filler game, and just makes you think a little bit. It's not brain-burning, crunchy, trying to maximize the combos. I feel like there's enough cards and variety in it that it will feel a little bit different each time you play. There probably is a saturation point for it at some point, where you go, oh, I've seen these cards, and I'll be looking for this card to go with this one if it pops up, kind of thing. But it's a small box game. It plays really quickly. It's easy to teach from the rule book. That's how I learnt it, and I've just enjoyed it. It's been a really satisfying little game to play.
I've seen this one compared to 2 games, to Far Away and to Fantasy Realms.
Okay, yes.
Which I think are interesting comparisons. But I like the idea of how can I make the best of a small subset of choices, a small subset of cards, or a small subset of a tableau to get the ideal or perfect kind of scoring. What I like about this one, which keeps it breezy, is you never have that many tiles to choose from.
Yeah.
The tiles change. So you can't sit there and AP it. It's kind of tactically, okay, what's the best I can do with right now, but also hoping and planning and praying that the tile that I need comes up. So that part of it keeps it really breezy and less mathy.
Yeah.
I feel like it strikes a really, really good balance. I've liked this one a lot.
Yeah. No, I think that comparison's quite good. Yeah, it doesn't feel you're overwhelmed with choice. I mean, there's 6 cards total on the table across the 2 different piles, but you can only buy where the messenger is. And yes, if you have keys, you can move it. So technically you've got 6 options if you want to move that messenger. But yeah, I just think this is a game that if you just want that sort of filler game that just gives you a little bit of thinking, I'd say more than Fantasy Realms does, but has a nice amount of choice. And I think they did a really good job of the resource management. It feels like you've got enough flexibility at the start, and that middle point starts to become, ooh, I'm a little tighter on resources. I need to find ways to just earn a couple more coins. It does feel like it's got a nice curve where you're going to peter out of the coins to buy those cards towards the end of the game if you're not too careful. But if you just go ham buying whatever you want, you're going to run into trouble because, as I said at the start of explaining the game, if you can't afford anything, then you're forced to take the card of whatever lane the messenger's in, and the back of every card just has 6 coins and 2 keys, and you have to put that in your tableau so you lose one of your 9 spots, and all cards have scoring opportunities on them. So it can be quite punishing if you have to take that option. So you got to be really careful not to run out of money in that game. But there's plenty of cards that provide those opportunities. You know, you might pay 4 for a particular one, and it says you get a coin per green shield in your tableau, and you might have 4 green shields. So it was a net 0 cost. You're looking for those opportunities as well as the comboing abilities, which is really fun.
Yeah. There's more and more games coming out that you're only going to play 9 cards, you're only going to play 6 tiles or whatever it is. And I mean, you and I played Pixies together, which is also, there's considerations of you're going to be playing these in a very specific order, or you have to play these in this way. Obviously, not to the same extent in Castle Combo, but I like that when you have these really limited options and go, in Pixies, do I want to take this 3 or do I really want to hold out for a different 3? And it's the same in Castle Combo. Do I really want this to be in the center of my grid?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the things I didn't explain as well, because you do make a 3x3 grid. The first card you put down is whatever, but from then you have to play orthogonally. So you can't, and your grid is not locked into position until obviously you create a row or a column of 3, because that first card you play might end up being the top left, or it could be the very center card. It just depends where you actually place things as the game progresses. So I do like that element of when you place it down, it's not like, okay, I'm choosing its position now. That can shift a little bit as you choose and place the other cards in to form your 3x3 grid.
Yeah, that's the case in our cities as well, from Phil Walker Harding we're talking about before. There's kind of lovely, implicit, never talked about decisions, but just add a nice little kind of personal touch or a bit more agency in what otherwise is a very, very simple game.
Yeah.
And I think Castle Combo is a great example of a game that's going to do really well because it's on Board Game Arena.
Very cool.
I think.
That's my sizzle, Castle Combo. And Lauren, you've got one I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on. I know all about it, but also, how did you get your hands on it?
I've had this pre-ordered for quite a while. As soon as I heard the conceit of it, just really wanted to have it.
Okay, I can see that.
But I was able to get one from Dean. I pre-ordered it from him a while ago. I don't know if he's sold out, or if there's still copies, but his came in January, so I got it, and basically it was straight to the table.
Nice.
So the game Jules and I are teasing is Wilmot's Warehouse. It's a game that received a little bit of attention because it was in part, I mean, Jules, you'd know more about this, but it was developed in part by Shut Up and Sit Down. Is that right?
Yeah, they've been putting their hand in a little bit of development work for games, and I'm sure there's a financial cut involved because they did videos for it, and there's still, multiple videos, I think, as well.
Yeah, they've done a playthrough as well. And like
so, interesting. It's not their first foray into development. Obviously, they've done stuff for Don't Get Got and Monikers.
Whereas those were kind of previously expansions that they developed for an existing game. This is the kind of the whole product that they've had their hand on from start to finish. So Wilmot's Warehouse is based off a indie video game, which is more kind of about organizing and placing tiles. But the board game is a kind of memory storytelling game. So essentially, it's the theme, which is, thinly veiled, is that you are organizing goods in a warehouse across the days of the week. So across 5 days, Monday to Friday, you're going to have 7 tiles that have abstract kind of geometric shapes and pictures on them, with block colors. So these really kind of, totally abstract pictures. You're going to look at it, and everyone's going to look at it, and then you're going to place it face down in your factory, which is a 7x7 grid. The first one goes in the center, and then you're going to do that, placing them orthogonally adjacent, kind of building your tiles out. So at the end of the game, you'll have placed 35 tiles out. What makes the game interesting is that you're going to all look at the tile, but then that's the last time you're going to see it until the end. And essentially what you're trying to do is remember where all of those tiles went, because at the end of the game, you have a thick deck of pictures that are all of the different shapes that it could have been, because you're only using a subset of the tiles in the game, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the game, you have this huge stack of kind of cards, and you're trying to place the pictures matching all the tiles, which are still face down. And then you just see how many you got correct. And also you'll get a score for how many you got correct and how quickly you did that. The way you remember it is the magic of the game. So as you are flipping these tiles, looking at them collectively and placing them face down, you're creating a story. A kind of heuristic, memory palace to help everyone at the table remember the tiles. So our story had, lots of Lord of the Rings themes. There was the Shire that was, of course it did. There was the Shire that was in the corner, and there was a little staff. So that was Gandalf's staff. And then something came up that kind of looked like a hand. So we were like, oh, well, that's Gandalf's hand.
I imagine you're just like building a map of Middle Earth, basically.
Yes, and it's completely detailed, accurate, measure for measure, perfect. So there was, the Shire, there was Gondor, and I'm going to show how much I don't know about Lord of the Rings right now, but there was a lot of that. But then there was, our house was perched in there, and the story, because you don't know the pictures that are going to come up, becomes a bit more absurdist and changes to try fit the geometric shapes. So some, not safe for work things came up, which I won't mention because they're just can be funny and easy to remember. But there was, some raspberries and a bucket of beer that was sat on top of an orc's head. It can become a bit fantastical and bizarre, but becomes exceptionally memorable as a result.
The
magic of this game is not how hard the memory component of it is. The magic of this game is how easy the memory component of it is.
Okay.
Because our brains are just designed to look at things and create meaning. We look at the clouds in the sky and you see, they're just clouds, right?
You see shapes.
You see a dragon, you see a face, whatever, right? Our brains are biased to kind of find connections and order in and amongst chaos. The other thing that makes the memory part, quote unquote, easy is that at the end of the game, you're not trying to freely remember exactly what the shapes look like. You're just trying to recognize those from pictures. So when you get the pictures, it's, was this a shape there or was this not a shape there? And that is much easier to do. I couldn't have told you exactly what that stuff looked like, but as soon as I saw the card, I was like, that's the stuff.
Yeah.
And that is easier to do. Free recall is much harder than recognition in memory. And so because that is easier, everyone frenetically and then like, yeah, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there. There are some parts of it that do get a bit tricky and hairy. And you're like, oh, was that the one above there or below there? But for the most part, it's awesome how kind of, easy that is and how kind of innately we're just built to tell stories out of rubbish. What then makes it, what's the kind of other layer on top of that, which makes the memory part hard again? Right? Because I'm, this whole time I'm saying, it's so magical and wonderful because we're innate storytellers and it's easy and you spend the whole game putting all this effort into building a story because you think it's going to be really hard. And then you just remember and you amaze yourself that you can. There are two things that make the game hard again. The first is that every one of the 5 days, starting from the Tuesday, so
yes, that's
4
right.
of the days, there's a card that tweaks things to make it harder.
Yes.
And those can be things like restricting the way you're allowed to communicate. So you're only allowed to say one word. There's one card that has you rotate the board 90 degrees.
Oh, gosh. No.
So there are cards, and those are graded by difficulty. So you can adjust the difficulty of the game based on how you tweak those cards. Ours, we had one, for example, right, where we had to look at all the Dale's tiles at once and then take out one of the tiles that we weren't allowed to look again and had to place blindly, do all the other tiles first, and then remember what that last one was and then place it. So all of these little things, but it's cool that as you rely on other people at the table, you all kind of fill the gaps of each other's memory for the most part. But the other thing that makes this game super difficult again is when you play games of it back to back.
I was literally
Because-
going to comment about that because I've had that problem before playing That's Not a Hat, where you play back-to-back games. I swear there was a skateboard. No, that was 2 games ago.
And that's the awesome part, is
Mm.
all of these stories, because they're so unhinged. It's so
Yes.
easy for the stories to blend into one another. And it's
Yeah.
exactly like that. And That's Not a Hat, is if you play this game back to back, you're like, well, gosh, wait, was the dog bowl above Jules's head? Was that in this
Yeah.
game, or was that the previous game? And they all kind of blend together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that long. So you can play a few games back to back. And I definitely recommend that you do, because it just makes it so funny and frenetic. It's I had such an excellent time playing this. This game is outstanding. Outstanding.
Okay. Yeah, I've been very curious to try it. I think this is definitely one you need a good. Well, I think it'd be enhanced by a good group of friends where you have those in jokes, and it would make the memory part easier for certain elements. But I think it could be fun with a group of strangers trying to build that story together, and you'd make a lot of great memories together with new people.
It's the stories that we made weren't even kind of related to personal experiences. I had to be close enough to those people to feel comfortable making a super weird story.
Yeah.
And yeah, we absolutely made some really kind of bizarre, hilarious things. And if you are with people that you're comfortable with, the process of remembering and kind of creating the story can be really, really funny. And obviously, if people have, dark senses of humor, or so not so safe for work senses of humor, it can absolutely lean into those things as well. So yeah, but it can also be very wholesome and family friendly. I really, really enjoyed Wilmot's Warehouse. I highly, highly recommend it.
Very cool. I think last comment from me about it, I think that one of the genius parts of that game is just the graphic design, that some objects are just kind of weird. They don't really have a thing, and you have to make up what it could be. The graphic design, I think, was really well done to allow that flexibility in the storytelling. It's not obviously, oh, that is clearly an apple and that is clearly a bow and arrow. It really does. It's abstract enough that it forces you to put creativity into it.
Totally. And on that, sometimes they do look a little bit like something, but it really doesn't fit with the story. So you have to kind of push away the urge to make it the obvious thing, because you're right, they're abstract enough, but some teeter on the edge.
Yeah.
I totally agree. The graphic design sets it over the edge, and also the production is lovely. The bag's got this really sweet kind of smiley face on it.
Yes.
And when you opened it, there was no plastic. Everything was kind of paper and cardboard, and so it was definitely done. And I know Shut Up and Sit Down talk about that a lot, so it might be their influence. There was definitely kind of considerations of the environment in its production, but the quality of the components are not compromised. Really, really, really lovely production. Can't recommend the product highly enough.
Very, very cool. All right, so that's our Sizzles, Castle Combo, and Wilmot's Warehouse. I do want to try Wilmot's Warehouse. It sounds very, very fun.
I'm gonna bring it to the game day.
Oh, yes.
Sydney.
Okay.
So
that's where I'll get to play.
People give it a crack there. Yeah,
fantastic.
For sure.
You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it. He's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories, all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now. All right, we'll talk about a couple of news and announcements. It is 2025. It is another year. PlayCon is this year. It is from the 11th to the 13th of July. The tickets are on sale on the website at www.play-con.com. So if you haven't got your tickets, go there. I would encourage people not to delay on that. Last I looked a couple of days ago, I think 3-day passes are probably sitting about 70% sold out at this point, and we're 6 months away from the event still. So get those tickets now if you can, because they're going fast. We've also got some game days coming up. We've got Brisbane and Melbourne game days on the 1st of March, and we've got Sydney on the 15th of March at the Castle Hill RSL. Tickets for all of those events are up on Eventbrite now, so go over to there and purchase your tickets to come along for a good, fun game day and to try Wilmot's Warehouse in Sydney.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. With that, we'll move on to our question of the pod. All right, so the question of the pod from last year. We can only make those jokes for a little bit longer. But it's funny every time. I'll see you next year.
It's like you can play out play by play, have those first conversations with coworkers at the start of the year.
Every time.
Every time.
But the question of the pod was stuck for stuffing stuck. That's a mouthful. Stuck for stocking stuffer ideas. Give us your recommendations. So we're after those, and I'm going to read out a couple. So we've got Taryn Hoffman that said Dropolta, the tiniest of games, but such a good laugh. Someone taught it to me at the last big games day. That's the dexterity type Oink game. Yeah, very, very cool. We had Emily talk about that on the podcast a little while back. So that was great fun. Sam Poole said One Deck Dungeon is one of the best, most compact dungeon crawlers. Grab a dice tray as well and you'll have a blast. I haven't tried that one yet, but I've heard a few good things.
Yeah, I've not tried much of that kind of One Deck series.
Me neither. Stuart McCune, Sausage Sizzle. It's out in retail now. Nothing more appropriate for an Aussie summertime gift. Couldn't agree more, Stuart.
Sausage.
We've got Steve Fry, Cash. Failing that, 6 Cash in the. Oh, okay, I thought he was talking about a game. He's literally talking about cash. I think.
Just give him those dollar bills.
Failing that, 6 Nimmt and Saboteur are great little games. Illusion is also a lot of fun, provided you're not colorblind. Yes. Great recommendations there. Nikki de Oliveira said Ecosystem or Ecosystem Coral Reef. There's a Savannah one too, but I haven't played it. Gorgeous little pass and play games. Create a tableau and score based on positioning. Bears near trout, longer stream, bears, bees, meadows, etc. Extra points for diversity of species. Small box game at about 20 Australian dollars. Sounds very, very cool. And our last one I'll read out is Stephen Lake said, I think accessories are always good. Packs of sleeves, metal tins for game pieces, cloth bags for big hands, geek up bits for their favorite game, metal coins, assorted Ziploc bags, dice and socks with Board Game Barbecue logos. Awesome stuff. Yeah, accessories, great idea. I mean, we're past Christmas at this point, but hopefully some people found those wonderful games and accessories in their stockings.
Yeah, or even just a little birthday idea. If,
yeah.
You know, someone coming up who has a sad, birthday right after Christmas.
Oh, yes.
So just a few from Insta. We've got A Tale of Two Meeples says, we're super excited to try the Tiny Box series from All Play. Can't confirm, but Santa just might be bringing Panda Panda and Rainbow. I really want to try Rainbow.
Okay.
It looks super, super good. Just like a little card game. I think it's originally from Japan.
Cool.
And YGK.GameNight says a fake artist goes to New York or Saboteur are perfect for the holiday gatherings and fit in a stocking nicely. Sea salt and paper won't work well for a large group, but it's a lot of fun.
Couple of mentions of Saboteur there. That's one I've played a lot of.
No, I've seen it in so many game stores. I've never played Saboteur.
It's good. It's a team deduction game. You've got people trying to go for the gold and you're laying tile pieces, and you've got saboteurs which mess up the path, but you're trying not to be obvious because you don't know who the saboteurs are.
Right.
There's lots of accusations flying around the table. It's good fun. It's a really old game, but I've had a lot of fun playing with people that aren't super into games, people that have played Uno, Monopoly and stuff, can pick up Saboteur really easy. It's an easy concept to learn.
Nice.
Yeah, really good fun, those ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And A Fake Artist Goes to New York is just
so good.
Barry Klanger, absolute banger.
Yes.
Brilliant.
All right, so our new question for this podcast, given it's a whole new year and we've already talked about some games coming out this year, is what is your most anticipated game for 2025? All right, so for me, a couple of the games I'm really looking forward to in 2025, not necessarily a game, but an expansion, the Veiled Fate Tribunal expansion. I love Veiled Fate, and the expansion they've added adds a lot more interesting stuff to the gameplay, which I think is going to elevate it to another level. I'm really, really, really looking forward to that. And I've got some upgraded bits coming with that one. A nice 3-dimensional model of the city that goes in the middle of the board. Love Veiled Fate. Very, very excited for all the expansion stuff to come for that. But one of the games I backed towards the end of last year that I'm really excited for is Shadow Moon Syndicates. So that was one that Sam McDonald and Jay Carmichael, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, of 3-Minute Board Games designed. And it just looks like a super fun area control game. Really, really excited to try that one. It just looked so wonderful. They had people from Weta Workshop that did world building for it, who are the crew that did a lot of the work on the Lord of the Rings. There you go. I've connected the whole thing, the whole podcast to the beginning. But yeah, it really captured my attention. I love area control, and it's one that I'm really looking forward to. What about you, Lauren?
That's really exciting because the 3-Minute Board Games guy, he plays a lot of games and a lot of really different games.
Yes.
So I'm really interested to see how he brings all of those things together in his own design. I know he puts a lot of love and care and play testing into his design. So that's really exciting. So there's a few. And some of these, if you look on Board Game Geek, do say 2024, but we're not counting that because we're Australia. And as far as I'm concerned, sometimes a 2021 game is a 2025 release if you live in Australia.
A prime example being Forest Shuffle.
Oh.
Was that too soon?
Too soon. I don't have my copy yet.
Oh, no.
So the first one is a game that there's a new Sashi and Sashi game called 1am Jailbreak.
Okay.
Which is a new Sashi and Sashi game. It's a small kind of card game that goes from 2 to 5, but a little Sashi and Sashi game that I can play at 2-player with the same kind of charming art. I'm very excited for. Even though, again, 2024, but I'm calling these 2025 because there's no way anyone in Australia would get these before then. Another one is a game from the designer of Scout.
I know this one.
Okay.
No, I'm thinking of a different one. He's worked on a few games.
It's called Revolve. Is that the one you were thinking of?
That is it. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a follow-up to Scout.
So, I mean, again, it does say 2024 release on Board Game Geek, but no one has their hands on this.
No.
I think was available at 2024 kind of end of year Tokyo Games Market.
Yes, that's right.
So some people that were there will have their hands on it, but I'm really excited to try that. Obviously, Scout was a huge hit. And then another kind of few honorable mentions. One is the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game.
Yes.
We're really riding this theme high
yes.
today, which I'm very excited about. And gosh, I've got so many. Sweetlands, big, heavy Euro, but the theme and the art just look really charming. So really excited about that. And there's also a follow-up to Railroad Inc., which is kind of like a tile-laying game.
Yes. I did see that. Yep.
Also interested to give that one a try. But yeah, heaps of good games coming out this year.
I am
too many.
Genuinely frightened for my wallet this year. I was pretty good last year. I didn't really back a whole heap of stuff and didn't really purchase a lot last year, but oh boy, there's some bangers coming in 2025.
There's some bangers coming out in 2021 and 2025 in Australia. So are yours more Kickstarter games or more straight to retail releases?
There's going to be a mix. One of the ones I'll mention that I don't know what to expect, but I'm really excited to see what the reception is for it. Is the Stonemaier title Vantage?
Oh, I've
This
not
is
heard of that.
okay. So they haven't spoiled a whole lot about it, but it is an open world exploration game, and it has like 1,500 cards in the box. It's a big box game that
What?
Stonemeier's making. Yeah. So that'll come out later this year. Obviously, Finspan's got all the attention right now, and people have thrown memes out the windows. It's just poking fun at it. But yeah, Vantage is one they have talked about, and then it is on Board Game Geek to look up some things there. But huge box game that's coming later. I feel like it's been a while since they've done a really big game, because Scythe would
Yeah.
have been, I think, Tapestry was quite a chunky box, but I suppose that's more miniatures than other stuff. But they've kind of been delivering, standard Ticket to Ride size boxes, which I guess are big, but I don't know. I have a Kickstarter brain, so I'm used to a stack of 10 boxes full with plastic.
Yeah, you're hot off playing Black Rose War every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a whole Kallax cube, that one game.
Oh, it's interesting because they've been a company for a while that has made games that will sell at like Kmart and Big W and
Yes.
Target, Walmart, places like that. So
Yep.
to dip their toe back into the, really heavy games, big, huge productions targeted more towards gamers is
Yes.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you say this though, how they release those kind of schedules of development?
Yes.
This one, I mean, they use pseudonyms for the ones that they've not, talked about or released names for yet. But now that you say that, this one's, I think, been on that chart for years.
Yes.
Fascinating. That's very interesting. I'll have to look that one up a bit more.
So look, I have no idea if it will be my jam, but it's a big box game. It's Stonemaier. I know it's open world exploration. It's got a lot of cards.
For sure.
It's enough to get me interested. So we'll see what happens with that one. Very good. Well, I'm keen to hear the community's thoughts. Please tell us on Facebook, Instagram, X, Discord, all the places. What is your most anticipated game for 2025? Leave a comment there and we'll talk about it on the next episode. All right, before we go to our final segment, I just want to give a plug to the community. Thank you for listening to the show. A special thank you to our Patreons. If you want to support us and sign up there, we greatly appreciate it. We have exclusive podcasts. We had a whole slew of Christmas episodes that came out just at the end of last year. Lots of things talked about, lots of games and other things. So there's lots of content if you want to listen to more of our ramblings. So you can go to Patreon to donate if you so desire. But if not, you can support us by joining the Facebook group or the Discord, leaving a review on whatever podcast app that you use that allows that system. Just telling your mates about the show, honestly, spreading the word, sharing what you love about the show, all of that really, really helps us and greatly appreciate it. If you want to see where you can get involved, there'll be links in the show notes to all the places which we interact with everyone. All right, just before we go to the last segment as well, I've got to thank some new Patreons. We've got Kevin Berry and Tom Hart. Thank you to both of you so much for becoming a Patreon member. Yes, round of applause for both of you. Very, very excited to have you on board, and thank you again for supporting us. All right, fired up time. Lauren, what's got you fired up? Go for it.
I feel like I buried the lead a little, but I do have the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game. I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I really feel
would
like
beg to differ.
podcast is suggesting otherwise. But I am a huge fan of trick-taking games. And the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game I've had on pre-order from Advent Games that is due to arrive in January at some point. So I'm very excited to get that to the table and give it a crack. And I also have, and this is a weird thing to be fired up about, but a lot of folded space inserts on pre-order.
Oh, really?
There's just something really pleasant. And I don't upgrade my games. I don't make inserts. I have got, my 1 sets of metal coins that I use for all games. I don't, geek out everything, and I don't like sleeve cards. I'm not that kind of person, but for some Euro games, folded space inserts have just been a game changer. And
Okay.
the process of kind of sitting and putting them all together, I find quite therapeutic. I get glue everywhere on my fingers, like stuck to my eyelid. But I'm really excited to organize Fields of Arle because I've been able to
Oh,
get that to the
yes.
table a few times, and it is a bear to set up. Anything that will make that better, it feels like a Euro game you can get really good at, and I want to get better at it, but I can't set that up for just myself. Absolutely not. But those are the things that I'm fired up for. Primarily, the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game, but also just to sit and have a pleasant time organizing and making some inserts. What about you, Jules? What's got you fired up?
I don't know. I feel like going away to see family for Christmas and bringing just smaller box games and trying games that I look at the box cover, I'm clearly not like, oh yeah, it's got monsters and this looks mean as and there's area control. Like, I've been trying lots of games I look at and go, I'm just going to give it a go, see what happens. I'm always a person that will give every sort of game I see a go, but I've just been pushing myself more to try things that I wouldn't normally. And just before I went away for Christmas, I got a package from Bitewing Games. They were kind enough to send some review copies of some of their newer stuff that has been delivering from Kickstarter. And they sent a copy of Bebop, Shuffle and Swing, and Cat Blues The Big Gig. They're all music, dance, jazz themed board games, which is really just not my thing. It's not something I gravitate towards, but I really love Bitewing Games. They've put out some absolutely cracking games. Love Soda Smugglers, love Trailblazers, Zuvardis. There's just so many titles they've put out that I've absolutely loved. So even though they're themes that I'm not like jumping for, I really love the games that they have done and the work they've done with Reiner Knizia as well. So I'm excited to try those 3 games and review them and talk about them on a podcast. That's what I'm excited to do in the very near future.
I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, well, all 3 of them will be available in the library at the next Sydney Game Day. So there we go.
This Sydney Game Day
We're-
is Wilmot's Warehouse, Bebop, shaping up to,
Yeah.
I mean, get your tickets.
That's it. Like, we love to bring the new hot games for people to try at the game days. So Sydney's the place to be, apparently.
Absolutely. Brisbane, Melbourne, what of them? Joe's gone. This is the Sydney cast now.
That's
Ain't nothing
it.
you can do about it.
All right, excellent. Well, that is it for the show. It's been a pleasure, Lauren, and we had a tiny bit of pleasure with Joe.
You're like, I said it. I heard it.
Yes. But
some
yeah.
moderate pleasure with Joe, and yeah, no, it's been great. Just excited to get stuck into the year, back into the swing of things, playing games, and out kind of past the just like party games, back into the work year, back into the regular game meetups, the meatier stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely been neglecting my meatier, bigger games. Apart from Black Rose Wars, that was last year. That was so last year.
And that's the last time we can make that joke.
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
See ya.